Our last two presenters will present as a unit, I guess I could say, and they are Jeff Buchanan and Josh Peters, both with the London Family Court Clinic. Is that correct? You're both with a clinic? And the title of their presentation is How the Zombie Apocalypse Saved My Client. So, gentlemen, proceed if you wish to come up here or present from there. Whatever.
Okay, so we're going to take things in a slightly different direction here. We're both counselors, we're both social workers, and for those of us who came to see us earlier today, we were talking about the youth that we work with and the challenges there and everything. And when I was asked to do the rebuilding panel, I was thinking very much from the mental health perspective. And I'm sure you have already gotten lots of good information about securing food and weapons and yourselves and all the other tangible things you'll need. So the tact we're kind of taking is let's look at the mental health element that's going to be there in rebuilding as well. Because I assure you, and brace yourselves, if you witness something horrific like a zombie eating your child or your parent or your better half, you're not going to walk away from that unscathed. And trauma is going to be a very prevalent element for people to deal with. And thinking about, and I'm stealing your thunder, sorry, but from the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once the bottom rungs are done, then you got to deal with yourself and what's left of yourself after that. So we're going to speak about some trauma stuff.
So Jeff did steal my thunder a little bit, speaking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but just a quick review. Starts off at the bottom layer with the most basic, which is physiological. Of course, we need food, we need water, we need shelter. Then we move up to safety, and we kind of look at this and the trauma response and the work that we do, often with youth or our clients, as really focusing in on this area. Now, we have kind of envisioned, when we were discussing this presentation, two possible scenarios. So the possible scenario number one is the possibility of the zombie apocalypse has occurred, you have survived for now. There are still zombies out there. There is still danger. The danger is real. You can be killed. You can be murdered at any moment in time. So, given that context, we understand that complete and utter trauma work is not going to be possible at this point of time. But nonetheless, the trauma response can be that of a very debilitating one. If you were at our presentation earlier, we talked about fight, flight, or freeze. Of course, if you have the freeze response, you're not going to make out so well. So our work often is done with the mind of how can we help those that we are working with ensure that they don't go into that debilitating freeze response, and they are able to use and access their frontal cortex to be able to activate, plan, and move forward.
So we're mindful of time, so I'm just going to talk about some trauma responses, things to look out for. You're watching out for your friends, for your family, yourself, whoever's left. Okay. Responses to trauma could be quite varied from person to person. They may be mild for a person, or they might be quite complex. So anxiety, terror, shock, emotional numbness, disconnection, intrusive thoughts, helplessness, powerlessness. Their memory is often affected, nightmares, depression, irritability, jumpiness, and again, in an ongoing state of constant threat. I wouldn't at all be surprised to see these things happening. Overall, causing a person what's called like psychological dysregulation, where they have a hard time emotionally controlling the response to the stimulus, which is the constant threat. Right? You also want to watch for the more physiological things, so chronic pain and or headaches, gynecological difficulties, gastrointestinal problems, asthma, heart palpitations, musculoskeletal difficulties, autoimmune disorders like chronic fatigue. It's all pretty depressing stuff, but that's the part and package. And as a response to the trauma, you want to keep an eye for some of the relationships of trauma with things like substance abuse, which I imagine would be pretty rampant. You'd want to watch for their physical health and their mental health. Survivors often feel unsafe and highly susceptible to abuse of power in relationships. So I think about The Walking Dead and some of the abusive relationships there. I mean, that's a real thing to actually look out for, right? And PTSD, which I think a lot of people have sort of heard the term in media, particularly as linked to soldiers returning back from war zones, but Josh will explain a little bit more about that.
Sure. So PTSD is the diagnosed criteria for trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. So things you're going to see are intrusive recollections, flashbacks, nightmares, etc. Avoidant or numbing symptoms. We kind of see that within the freeze response. It's an ingrained freeze response that would occur, or completely not wanting to engage with others or people that could help you or provide safety for you. And hyperarousal symptoms are also very present. Of course, when you experience extreme trauma, and if the zombie apocalypse did occur, or when it does occur, sorry, you will have repeated exposure to trauma. So this one is often what we call developmental trauma or long-term trauma, which is much more ingrained into your entire physical self, your mental and physical self. And so you're going to see hyperarousal symptoms. You're going to view the world as naturally as a dangerous place, and even after the threats are over, you are still going to have that response of that this world is a dangerous place. You
good?
For that, yeah.
Okay. So going back to the rebuilding theme, I would highly recommend that you have a counselor on your save list, and that person would help with things such as setting up services to treat the trauma, right? And when you're looking at that, you want principles and practices of trauma-informed approaches. So the awareness of what trauma is, the emphasis on safety and trustworthiness, so with, like the environment you create for the counseling for the trauma, the opportunity for choice, collaboration, and connection, and the strengths building and skill building. This might be an important point to just remind people that you can't actually cure trauma, all right? It's an event that has occurred, and it's a response that is based on that event, and we can't erase the event. So what you're really looking to do is to minimize the response and the reactions to the triggers. That would be that event. And then eventually, hopefully, the person just won't be triggered to an extent that it causes problems in their day-to-day living. So trauma-informed services, where it places the priority on the individual's safety, choice, and control to create a treatment culture of nonviolence, learning, and collaboration. That would breed then trauma-specific services. So some of the things that I had listed here would be cognitive behavioral therapy, stress inoculation, some exposure therapy, which I guess in the context of zombies would be pretty dangerous, skills development, sensory motor psychotherapy, rapid eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing would be probably the best sort of modalities to use in terms of counseling for this ongoing and traumatic stress. And any remarks? Yeah, so that's it for ours. Thank you very much.